Collecting is the backbone and the best part of the hobby, but that doesn't mean you can't try to profit along the way. Today, I'm breaking down the 3 ways that you can profit from the hobby you love. Let's data dive. Hey everyone, welcome back to another Market Movers video. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot, and you know what? I am a collector. Yes, I am. I'm not lying. I know. I work for Sports Card Investor, but I do collect. We all do. Jeff, if you didn't know, has an insane collection, and I have kind of a unique one, at least. Our staff has collections. Collecting is the hobby, and I hope that you've noticed that a lot of the content that I've been making recently, not only in the recent videos, but actually for quite a while now, is regularly collection focused. It's hobby focused, but that doesn't mean it's wrong to try to make money from the hobby. There's this really unfortunate, what I would say, false dichotomy perpetuated by some folks, a vocal minority, who get really mad at the idea that sports cards just shouldn't be about money. But we pay money for the cards. We pay money to get them graded. We buy and we sell. Money is inherently an aspect of sports cards. So these people go and they make posts on Instagram, they make YouTube videos, that get like a few dozen views, shaking their proverbial fists in the air that sports cards are not investments. And they say that because there are no dividends or options or regulation. They're not liquid, and therefore they say they can't be qualified or classified as investments. It sounds a bit to me like they're trying to say that sports cards are not stocks. And at that point, well, they're right. Sports cards are not stocks. But sports cards absolutely can be investments, only specifically the right sports cards. And no matter what the rabble-rousers might say, there's no shame in viewing them that way, nor in buying cards with the strict hope that they will actually go up in value and not down over time. Now, I will say this, and this is really important. I do hope that everyone buying and selling sports cards will also collect. If it's purely about the money, that's a little disingenuous, and that's where a lot of people have gotten into trouble. But it's not wrong. It's not immoral. It's definitely not one of the biggest problems plaguing society today, worthy of people spending all their free time preaching to the choir and echo chambers about how they don't like it. And at the end of the day, it's not new. It's been happening for a long time, and it's not going anywhere. So that's me on my little bit of a moral, ethical soapbox of perspective. Now what I want to do is I want to break down for you the 3 primary ways that you can actually profit from sports cards. And I'm going to warn you, none of them are easy, and none of them are guaranteed. Let's data dive. All right, y'all, before we get into this, you know that I'd love for you to try out Market Movers. This has been a fantastic year. Our member counts have been growing, and I really, frankly, owe all of you a massive debt of gratitude for watching these videos and for those of you who do subscribe to our product. My team works incredibly hard to build an app that can help you no matter how you hobby. And the more of you who find value in our app, the more we can continue to make it better, to expand our database, to increase the value and utility to our users. So very sincerely, thank you to all of you who do use it. And if you're not already and you want to try it out, you can visit marketmoversapp.com. You just put in code DIVE, D-I-V-E at checkout, and it'll get you 2 weeks completely for free to try it out, plus 20% off any plan for a life. So without further ado, the first way that you can make money in the sports card hobby is the quick flip. Now, I want to talk about the quick flip here. There's a few different dynamics. One thing that I have to mention, maybe not specifically the quick flip, not what I'm really going to discuss at a little bit more at length, it's just grading. Grading is definitely a way that you can make money in the hobby. I would put it under the quick flip category. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here. Why? Because I'm going to be doing some really fun grading videos that I think you're going to get a lot of value out of and really enjoy in the coming weeks and months. Now, specifically with grading, there's 2 things you can do. You can obviously take raw cards and evaluate them and then send them for grading. We're going to do a video on how to do that. You can also crack cards out of one grading company and send them to another. Very commonly, people will do that with anything non-PSA, and then they'll send it to PSA and try to get a 10. So both of those are options. I would put those into the quick flip category. Basically, it's the goal of trying to get increased value in your cards. Some people do it for their collection. Just they like to have the other grading company and whatever. They just like to get their cards graded, authenticated, protected, all of that. But grading is definitely a way you can make money. But the other option is the quick flip online and in person. In either environment, you can flip cards online, you can flip cards in person. And basically it's the goal of buying the card at one price and just moving it for more money to make some money to somebody else. Some people call this the hot potato game. They get mad, whatever. But you know what? This is a huge part of card shows in particular right now. For good or for bad, the hot potato game and the flip and the deal and the triage and the arbitrage, all of those types of things, that's what you see a lot at card shows, at trade nights. I know a lot of dealers sometimes get a little frustrated by that because people are, I need room, I need room. You saw my video when I went to Chantilly recently. Be respectful, but people like this game. Some people really like to play this game and some people do very well with it. And again, I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with it. Even outside of the in-person stuff, I want to show you a couple examples of some of the quick flips that I had historically. These are older ones, but sometimes it's fun to go back and look and kind of dwell on the past. So first one was this Trae Young Optic Holo Raw. And this isn't anything too crazy on this particular card, but I actually bought a copy of this card from Mercari, of all places, back in 2019 when I first, a couple months after I got back into the hobby. And I was just doing quick flips just for fun. I was trying to learn, trying to figure out cards. I was collecting, I was digging into my old childhood collection, but I was trying to do quick flips to make some money to buy more cards for my collections when I started collecting Andre Drummond. And I bought this card for $20 back then, which was an absolute steal. Now, raw, unfortunately, today, it's down to $10, but I bought it on Mercari and immediately flipped it for $100 on eBay. Sold it for $100. So I found a steal on a marketplace that had less eyeballs on it, and somebody who just didn't know what the card was worth, bought it for $20, and I sold it. That card back then, the week after I sold it for $100, went up to like $225. Suddenly there was this buzz around Optic Holos and being undervalued compared to Prism Silvers. Trae Young was actually continuing to play, kind of on the up and up. So I could have sold it for more, but that was a very successful quick flip. I 5x'd my money basically in a week time. So that was really exciting back then, and I had a lot of fun doing that. Now you can look at this chart and you can say, oh, but that card, it peaked out at over like almost $500, $450, $500. Well, that was the COVID boom. Everything was crazy back then. Nobody knew that was coming. So that was what I would call just like your quintessential successful quick flip. You find a deal, you move it, you move on, and then you use it to do something else. This one hurts quite a bit more. It was a successful quick flip. I doubled my money. I found a copy of this Shohei Ohtani Color Blast. This is an unlicensed card out of Panini, Prism 2019, but it's a beautiful card, and this picture, unfortunately, doesn't really do it justice. When you see these cards now, Color Blasts, I don't have to tell all of you, are incredibly popular. One of the 4 to 5 most iconic Panini inserts of the last decade, I would say. And that's why even for an unlicensed card, this card sells for a lot of money. I bought one of these for $50 on Facebook Marketplace back in 2019, and I sold it. And maybe it was early 2020. I don't know. It was like in that time frame. And then I sold the card for $100, maybe $105 instantly on Facebook Marketplace to somebody else. So I bought it, I relisted it, I sold it, and I doubled my money, and I was like, man, this is awesome. I'm finding these deals on all these little marketplaces. The lesson there is if you do have the time and the system to scour Facebook groups, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Mercari, auction houses, ComC, all these random places that you can find cards, there can be really big arbitrage opportunities to find things for a deal and then move them. Unfortunately, this card, Color Blasts went up and Shohei Ohtani went up, and the whole card market as a whole went up to where this card peaked up at its high point a few years ago at $4,500. And now, right now, it's a $2,000 card. It's more than a $2,000 card because Ohtani's stuff is up significantly, like 30 to 100% on some cards since July when this card last sold in raw condition. So if I pop this into a PSA 10, you'll see that a PSA 10 copy just sold for almost $3,700, which actually seems surprisingly low considering the price of the raw card for this particular one. But it's a low pop card, pop 14, transacting quite a bit this year for a card that's that low pop. So I guess there's some hot potato game happening with these cards in particular. But that's really the quick flip is the one that I think irks the most people who get frustrated by all of this stuff. They just don't like having people walk up and saying, I want to pay you, lowball you on this because I got to have room and I paid this, I'm into it for this much, whatever. I get it. I get it. Some people just want to sort of like be left alone and collect what they collect. Other dealers, they're like, look, I'm a dealer. I'm trying to buy. Now you're asking me for wiggle room. Again, I would just say be respectful if you're into this. And if you don't like it in particular, to me, it's not worth getting like irritated or bent out of shape over or getting all stressed out about, because it's not going to go anywhere. It's absolutely not going anywhere. It's here to stay. The first way that you can make money in the sports card hobby is the quick flip. All right, on to the second way that you can make money in sports cards, and this is what I would call speculation. This is like the short term, this is your hunch. This isn't trying to do a quick flip and just make, get something at 10% or 20% less than what it's actually worth and then sell it for what it's worth or more. This is like you're ready to have an incubation period. You're ready to have an incubation period to let it sit. Usually it's a player that you're like, I think this person's going to break out, or I think there's just going to be hype around this person going into the season, or I think this team might make a playoff run, and if they do, this player is going to be a big part of it. A lot of what we talk about on like the weekly top 5 cards has everything to do with speculation. It's that short-term ebbs and flows of active players who break out, who have a big game, who have a great season, something happens of note, and their card prices go up. And this is you trying to get out in front of that with that hunch and then to capitalize on it. So I'm going to start out with an example here, and that's Jackson Jobe. Jackson Jobe, if you don't know, he's in the Detroit Tigers system. He actually got the call-up this year, which actually was maybe a little bit unexpected. For a while there, as you know, the Tigers weren't looking like they were going to be a playoff team, and people weren't expecting him to get the call-up for that reason. They just thought they'd keep him in the minors this year, and he'll get called up next year. I'm big on Jackson Jobe. After Skeens got the call-up, he was the #1 pitching prospect in the minor leagues. He's fantastic. He's talented. He's got insane arm action and speed. So I was really excited about him, and I love the Tigers. I was trying to pick up one of these PSA 10 Bowman Chrome Sapphire, Bowman Draft Sapphire PSA 10s. It says Bowman First for quite a while. Let me pop this open just so everybody can see this card. I'm trying to remember to be better about that, by the way, to show you the visual. So it's a nice card. It's a nice picture. He's, cocking back to fire a fastball or something. And I wanted to pick one of these up. I missed out on like 5 in a row. I kept trying to buy them and get a deal. And then there were a couple of them ending on auction, like on the same night, or maybe within a night of each other. And I put in bids on both thinking, I don't know, maybe I'll get one, maybe I won't get the other one. I ended up winning both, which I wasn't mad about, because a lot of times I do like to buy multiple copies so that I can wait and sell one and then keep the other one for my collection. And then I ended up buying a yellow to 75 in a PSA 10 that I got a really good deal on, like a really good deal. And so then it was like, well, maybe I don't want the regular base sapphire for my collection. Long story short, he got the call up, and usually when a player gets called up, you want to sell their cards. Well, in this case, he gets the call up. I listed the card for $100, which looks like a $23 profit, but there was $15 in fees because of eBay. It's 15% fees, and I sold it on eBay just to move the card. That's what I want to point out to you. This isn't like a big speculation win. His cards did go up in value, and going up 23% in value is, notable. But at the end of the day, I made $8 in profit on this card, which was like next to nothing. $77 was like the fully loaded price with taxes and with shipping. So that's what that's the moral of the story here. Just be mindful of fees. You might think like, oh, I want this card. This card goes up $20, and I buy a bunch of these. Blah blah blah. Be careful of fees. Beware of fees. Beware of the fully baked costs. I've talked about that a lot in the past. So that's my Jackson Jobe example. My next example is simultaneously the single biggest speculation win I've ever had with cards of any kind, and also my biggest miss, my biggest what could have been. So these precious metal gems, specifically out of 2013 and 2015, Marvel, from Fleer Retro Marvel. I saw somebody post one of these on Instagram back in like 2020. They posted one on Instagram, and I was like, that card is awesome. PMGs are the bee's knees when it comes to basketball inserts in the 90s, the reds and the greens in particular. And then I saw one of these blue ones, like this Cyclops, and I was like, that is such a cool color. I like blue is my favorite color, so it was even cooler to me than doing like a red or a green. And I saw that, and I'm like, I gotta go buy one of these. So then I find my way to eBay, and I started buying these, and they were like $10 to $35. So you can see, these are my purchases back in 2020, October of 2020. Order total, $35. Fleer Retro Magneto Red to 100. Here's one, $10. This was a 2017, not as sought after Venom, but it was cheap, number to 199. Bullseye to 100, $17. Spider-Man, this is $22, but this again was the bronze to 199. That was out of 2017, so not as sought after. I bought some 2017s. Then you can see I bought a Vision, $15, Juggernaut, $18. These are all from the same seller, many of them. There were like 2 or 3 sellers that I found. I bought like 30 of these things. I think I spent about $800 total. And that was a lot of money for me back then to like just put into cards, and I had no guarantee or proof that anything was gonna happen with them. I figured worst case, they couldn't really go down. They looked really cool. I'd keep a few for my collection. I'd ship the rest of them. So I sat on them, and I told a few friends, I said, I think these are sneaky. I think these are sneaky. I talked to one of our employees back then. He bought a few of them. I gifted a couple of them as Christmas gifts to Kelly and to one of the other guys on the team because I thought they were cool. Gave her a Black Widow, gave him a Captain America, and boy, did this pay off. This paid off in a big time way. These cards skyrocketed, and actually I ended up selling them below where they were worth, several of them. There was a huge problem with these for a period getting like massively shill bid on eBay and going unpaid. There was definitely, and I'll say this, there was definitely market manipulation on these, and I think it was a few nefarious actors. It wasn't me. I bought these on a speculation, and I didn't even talk about them. I wasn't pumping them, but I was hopeful that they could catch on and that people would be excited about them. Little did I know, like, just how nuclear these cards could absolutely go. But I ended up selling, most of these for 10x or more what I paid for them. You can see this Gambit I bought for $20, and I sold it for $900. So I had several examples like this of making anywhere from, $200 to $600, $700, $800, $900 on these cards. I did really well on that $800 investment. So here's what I learned. This is a really important lesson. Instead of buying 30 different characters in this case, or players or whatever, and spending $800 on those 30, I would have been much better off, and you will almost always be better off buying the best player. Spend the money, if the cards are available, spend the money on the best player or the best character. What I didn't do back then was I didn't buy Spider-Man, specifically from 2013 or 15. I didn't buy the Spider-Man. What I didn't do was I didn't buy Wolverine, who's like the second most expensive from either of those years. I didn't buy either of them. And I'm gonna show you just how crazy those cards went in our sales history, where this Spider-Man green, now this is to 10, this Spider-Man green from 2013 sold for $168,000 on Golden Auction. $168,000. I can tell you I don't believe that card was available to buy on eBay at that time. But if it had been, it would have been a lot cheaper. Here's the blue, $132,000, and I'm gonna come back to that and I'll tell you why. Here's some from 2017 and later years. Here's the blue Captain America for $88,000. I had the red Captain America. I gifted that card. I gifted it. And that person didn't sell it for anywhere near this. I can tell you that. So I don't know actually what happened with it, with that particular card. But I had these cards. So now if I scroll down, this is the card right here. This card. I believe, and I have to remember that this card was available. A 2013 Spider-Man red to 100 was available. And if it was, I think it was around $300 to $400. So I had like $800 in investment, and let's say I made like $13,000. This particular card, I would have spent, let's call it $400, and it sold for $78,000. So that was the lesson. Buy the best cards. Buy the ones that are gonna have the most demand and the most hype, because if something does catch fire and it goes up, it's no different than trying to get a Michael Jordan PMG versus, trying to get like even a, lower tier, like a John Stockton PMG and then a Calbert Cheaney PMG or some, Cedric Ceballos or somebody else like that. So that's the lesson in all of this. I've got one other story, and if you want to hear that one, I'll spare you the details right now in repeating it. You're going to want to go back and watch Cards on the Table from last Thursday. Opening segment from Cards on the Table when we talk about the Jalen Brunson Nebula flip to find out my single biggest regret in history. Very closely related to this, but even more of a reality. Go watch that and make sure you catch that video if you haven't already. It's on the Sports Card Investor channel. All right, last thing I want to talk about here is Shohei Ohtani. This was another big speculation that I had. And this is an interesting one because you know what? You're almost never going to time things perfectly. And while you might end up being right at speculation, you can also wind up being wrong with your speculation. So I was right last year in that I put more money into Shohei Ohtani before the baseball season started, from February into a little bit of March, maybe January to March of 2023, before the season started, than I ever have into a single player. And I had been in a little bit of a pause with trying to speculate because the market was volatile. A lot of players were still coming down. But I became absolutely convinced that Shohei Ohtani was nearly a lock for MVP going into the 2023 season because of hitting and pitching. And I was super high on him. And so I bought a bunch of his cards. I bought this Mother's Day pink card for $575, and I flipped it for $1,500. I had these other ones, just a Allen and Ginter base, $70, up to $180. This was the big one. I bought his Topps Chrome Gold Refractor. My buddy Scotty B helped me find this on Instagram. I bought it from a guy in an Instagram story for $4,000, and then I sold it for $6,400. I bought this Shohei Ohtani Father's Day Powder Blue, and I bought it for $1,580. I sold it for $1,950. That wasn't a big one, but this was actually one that I flipped on the eBay vault with no fees at the time. And then I had his base pitching, which that one, was kind of next to nothing. I don't think the sold date is right in this. These were older sales from several years before. So those were the Ohtanis. This card I had this year, and I decided finally to sell it or trade it at the National, and I didn't honestly make that much money on it. And then this card just skyrocketed back up with a recent sale of $300. So it had come down, and I was a little bit worried about Ohtani. I don't know. It's Shohei Ohtani. So the point being, I was both right about Ohtani and wrong. I didn't believe in him as much this year, going in knowing he was only going to be hitting coming off the surgery. He wouldn't be pitching. I didn't see him as a lock in what had previously been a very competitive NL MVP situation, at least the year before in 2023. Script flipped this year to where the AL was way more competitive. NL was pretty much a landslide runaway for Ohtani, with Lindor and Ozuna, and I'm forgetting somebody else who had a decent season, Ketel Marte maybe. But yeah, it's Ohtani. So that was a speculation. A lot of times speculating on the absolute best players can be a good idea, even when their prices are already very high, because they have the most eyeballs, and people are going to get really excited about them if they start winning awards and going to World Series and doing special things and having 50-50 record historical seasons and. So Shohei Ohtani still, to me, even right now, if his prices do come down even 10% in this offseason, he's somebody that I think I might be looking to buy. Personal opinion, don't take that as your own investment advice. Do your own research, all those things, but that's kind of my position. And speculation, therefore, that short-term game, I talk about that with the seasons and the price movements and this quarterback and this NBA player. That's the second way that you can make money in sports cards. All right, the third and final way, this one's truly what I would say is the investment, and that's the long-term game. This is, you buy an iconic card, you put it into your safe, your vault, your whatever, send it to one of the safe and secured vaults somewhere else if you want to do that, where it's insured and protected from damage. But it's an iconic card. It's probably going to be an expensive, at least four-figure card, and you just park it away and you say it is an alternative investment option. No, it won't get dividends. No, it won't do all these things and have all this flexibility that you can have with your IRA or your Roth or whatever, stocks and options and so on and so forth. But cards historically, the most important and the most iconic cards historically have done very well. In fact, they perform well many times through recessions. They perform well long-term. They outpace the S&P 500, many of them do. So that's why I'd say it's a viable long-term option. So I've just pulled up some of those cards. And the important thing here is the card needs to be really important. It needs to ideally be both a top player and a top set. and there's a little bit of like a moving lever comparison in that regard. So you could go for a LeBron James card that is, you know, relatively iconic, not super obscure, or you could go for the most iconic set, like a Precious Metals, for a player from like a lower tier of like an all-star game type caliber, you know, player who maybe isn't even a Hall of Famer. Stay within those boundaries. If you're able, try to get like really good grades on the cards. The lower overall supply on the card, the better the card is typically going to perform long term. I go for higher pop, maybe not ultra high, but higher pop liquid stuff in the short term flip and speculation game. Long term, you want to go with what's known, what's iconic, what's rare, what is low population or low serial numbered, and go with those cards. And most of the time, that's going to also mean rookie cards, or like I said, like the most important insert or parallel sets from a given generation. Go for those things. So let's just scroll down. And I looked at, you know, LeBron James, Mickey Mantle, Tom Brady, Bill Russell, Peyton Manning, Steph Curry, Willie Mays, Ty Cobb. I think I said Tom Brady already. You know, it's just go through all the best players. The 1 to 2, maybe 3 best players from any given generation. We got, of course, Griffey. We've got Kareem. You know, you'd have Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Look at those types of players and figure those out, and you can build a portfolio from that. The one thing I would say, just be very careful with, is use the price chart to look at the card. So what do I mean by that? You know what? Let's look at the Star Jordan, and let's look at the PSA 9, and let's do 1984 here. Not the PSA 9. Let me look at the 8. Sorry. And let's pull this up, and let's look at all the data we have for this card. You know what? I might say that buying the Star Jordan long term, just broadly speaking, would be a good investment. But you know what might not be a good investment? Buying this card for $244,000 when it sold a year earlier for $59,000. That card has been on a heater. We'd call it a heater lately. And I'm going to look at the PSA 10 1986 Fleer. And I'm going to grab this one too and show you the kind of wild story with this one. Let's go to all data. I'm going to get rid of the Jordan Star. Whoops. And this card actually went nuclear. Now it's summarizing this data. So what I'll do is I'll just come down to completed sales and I'll show you what this card peaked out at. This one sold at a high point. This was a real sale for $840,000. There was this little stretch where the PSA 10 Jordan just got into the spotlight. I think some people with deep pockets, who knows, maybe celebrities, athletes, others, you know, tech entrepreneur, whatever. People with money got convinced that this card was going up to $1 million, and they went and they bought these at really big prices as it like incrementally crept up. You can see it here. It was like January in this ballpark, and February a little bit lower, and all of a sudden this sale happens. And then, of course, what happens, that card hits $840,000, and suddenly a glut of supply starts getting sent to these big auction houses, and people are going, you know what, I'm out. I love this card, but I paid $120,000 for it, $170,000 for it. Give me my money. And so they started sending them, and then now you've got more supply. The demand isn't there. The person who really wanted it just paid up big. They're like, I don't need another one. And that's kind of come down in price. So be careful. Use price charts. Know the history of a card. And if you see something like this, basically like 180, 90 degree, 180, math is hard. Do like a 90 degree, sharp upright or 85 on a slope. My recommendation is I wouldn't be buying that card then. Even if it's for a long-term investment, I don't see that card getting back up to $840,000 in my lifetime. I personally don't. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'll be wrong about that, but that's just a big, massive loss. So there's still risk in long-term investments. Look for deals, don't rush into it, be patient, cast a net and try to get things for deals on the auction houses, like maybe even lower than what they've been selling for. So you already bake in, ideally, a little bit of equity for yourself. But that is definitely an investment. Having sports cards long-term, the right cards of the right players, the most iconic ones, definitely to me classifies as an investment, and they're not going anywhere unless something catastrophic just happens to the sports card hobby overall, which I don't think it will, or to the world that we live in. And in that case, I think we'd all have bigger problems than what's happening with the sports cards. So number 3 way that you can make money, not rocket science, is just the long-term investment. All right, thanks so much for listening to me and my hot air in this video. As I've said before, my goal is to help the everyday collector, the person who is new to the hobby or newly returning, and just to keep it real. And in that regard, I do hope this video was helpful. I really appreciate you watching, and I'd love if you'd consider subscribing to this channel, like the video, drop me a comment down below. I do try to take time to read those and even respond. And until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun. And go try Market Movers.